What do you think his comments tell us exactly at this point? What should we be reading into this?
No, personally, I try to avoid talk of World War III. I'm not ready to go into the bunker yet. But I think President Biden is referring to a notable escalation, first of all, within Ukraine, which is the expansion of the Russian bombing and shelling into the west of the country, including this morning, only about 25 kilometers, 15 miles from the Polish border, hitting a military facility. Now, that's still within Ukraine, but the second part of Biden's statement is really sort of a warning to Russia. Don't cross the border into Poland. Don't hit a NATO country or threaten a NATO country like the Baltic states. It's bad enough that you've invaded Ukraine and we are going to meet you there. We're not going to let this go unchecked, but we're not going to use direct military force inside Ukraine. So we don't want you using military force against any of the countries around it.
I mean, it is interesting rhetoric, isn't it? And a lot of people would say it's not particularly helpful, but he does have to make clear, doesn't he, that, you know, and I think, to be fair, they have already, that, you know, they are absolutely concrete in their agreement to Article 5, and they Article 5 would be deployed if a single Russian foot steps over into a NATO country.
Oh, absolutely. That collective defense, which is the fundamental of NATO since it was set up in 1949, has to remain in place, or Vladimir Putin could feel like he could move across a number of countries in Eastern Europe, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland itself. And Putin has already carried out a form of warfare against some of these countries with cyber attacks, with economic sabotage over the past 15 years. So you have to draw the line there. But I think also Biden's drawing another line without saying it explicitly. The Americans have been criticized, I think rightly, for not supporting the transfer of Polish jets to Ukraine. However, the U.S. and other countries have supplied more than 20,000 anti-tank missiles. They've supplied anti-aircraft missiles. And he's really saying to the Russians implicitly, we're not going to stop that military assistance. We're not going to stop the Ukrainians from defending themselves, even if you threaten our countries nearby.
Mm. Scott, you're an expert on international conflict. Let me ask you this question. Why now? Why has President Putin chosen to escalate the conflicts and animosity between these two countries, which has been going on for 8 years? Why has he turned the volume up on this now?
Well, I think there's two starting points for me. And I think the first is very important because quite often you'll hear people say, oh, it's the fault of NATO because they took in members like the Baltic states. It's the fault of the West for surrounding Russia. That's not it. First reason, Vladimir Putin, as he has written, as he has said, wants Ukraine to be part of Greater Russia. He wants that government to fall. He wants to take over most of the country as his second reason, legacy. This is an old guy. He's 69 years old. He's been in power more than 20 years. His legacy cannot be the Russian economy, which was in serious trouble even before the sanctions. His legacy really isn't a Russia, which is a power on the level of China or the US or the European Union. So what's his legacy? This supposedly grand victory, which he thought he could get cheaply simply by walking into Kiev and assassinating or detaining leaders. He wants a legacy, and that's why he decided and has decided for months that this was his endpoint to invade Ukraine.